And Mike took me in almost like a brother, and it's been an amazing ride. But the one thing I will say that I learned right away from being with Mike is you better pay attention when he's talking and hope you can gather about half of it he's done. So if everybody in the room could raise their hand if you completely understand everything Mike tells you. You know.
You have no hands.
Anyway, one of those times I'm right to Steel Swamp. I'm driving, he's riding with me, and I got my oldest son, Jared's about 7 years old, riding with us in a pickup. And Mike is in prime Mike fashion telling me, I don't even remember what, but he is going 100 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, my son Jared looks at him and goes, "Hey, you said that backwards." And Mike stops in his tracks and points his finger in Jared's chest and says, "I threw the cow over the fence. Some hay. That's backwards." And it just went right back into his talk again without missing a beat. And it was like, I've never seen a guy that can go from whatever he's doing to something else at the flip of a switch like Mike can. And it doesn't matter if it's a speech or even just cleaning up. He could come out of the feedlot and look like he belongs in a boardroom in 10 minutes, you know. So, one other one of Mike, though, is I'd mentioned to him once I wanted to build a sandbox for my kids at home and asked him if I could steal some sand from him at the big house. And, oh, yeah, sure, have at it. The next night, he pulls in my house in a lowboy. And I walk out there and he's got a dump truck on it. He jumps out and fires the dump truck off, drives it off the lowboy and says, "Where do you want sand?" I said, "Over here." And he dumps it and he loads it back up. And I finally, as he's leaving, I said, "Mike, why did we bring the dump truck on a lowboy if it runs?" And he said, "I never licensed that truck. I got it." So anyway, but the last thing I want to leave you with is Mike is a selfless community leader. And I'll repeat the word selfless because everything he does is not for him. The Land Coalition stuff, the water issues, the cattleman stuff, he didn't do that for Mike Byrne. He did it for everybody, and he did it because he did it what was right. And Mike has always stood for what's right and not necessarily what was best for him. And the one thing I will say that is proof to me of that, Mike's operation never really counts on Klamath Project water. It can't represent 5%. I've never heard anything from Mike, but it can't represent 5% of his operation. But yet he put more time or as much time as anybody into fighting for water because of what was right. And with that, he did it. When he'd get done, he'd always tell me, he'd say, "We never got what we wanted. It didn't get as much as we wanted. And I feel bad for the young guys, the guys that have equipment loans. I feel bad for the operations that need that water worse than I do." It was never about Mike, and it always just struck me that way. And last night we're in here setting up, and the sound man shows up here, and he starts putting the speakers up, and immediately the music starts playing. And the first song I heard was, it was a Tracy Lawrence song. It says, "You'll find out who your friends are." And as I'm listening to the words of that song, it's talking, it's basically coming from a perspective. When you're down and out, you call somebody. Mike's that guy, and at work say, you hit the gas, you get there fast. You never stop and think what's in it for me. Or it's way too far. You just show on up with your big old heart. And let me tell you, in 37 years, I've never had to wonder about Mike Burns being my friend. And none of you do either, because he stands for everybody. This community has never had a better friend than Mike Burns. Thank you.